Friday night. The moment the elevator doors closed shut, I heaved a sigh of relief. Felt like I'd been put through the ringer. Anxiety, nervousness, happiness, nervousness, sadness, happiness, nervousness, anxiety. Someone shut the fucking ride off, please. Bianca rested a hand on my shoulder, gave it a good squeeze. You alright? Yeah, I breathed, letting her mold me like putty. Was just a lot. Understandable. We reached the 6th floor in no time. I kicked off my heels as soon as the elevator doors opened and walked barefoot to our room. Didn't give a fuck how it looked. My feet were killing me, and it was only the thought of our freshly made bed that kept me going. I didn't realize just how much prep Bianca had done for tomorrow's meeting until I stepped into our room and surveyed the materials splayed out across the desk. Everything was broken out and organized. Brochures, notes. Hell, she'd even arranged the BDs in an almost OCD-like fashion, placing them evenly apart from one another. Seemed extraneous, considering we were just going to shovel it all into our bag in the morning anyways, but it was comforting to know that she was on top of things even if I wasn't. I was eager to strip out of my suffocative corporate attire and slip into something more comfortable before passing out for the night. But Bianca wasn't going to let me off the hook that easily. So, how'd it go? About as good as can be expected. That's it? No drama? No awkwardness? No nothing? B, we talked, alright? We really gotta rehash all this now? Bianca raised an eyebrow and went about getting changed. Her silence spoke volumes. I sighed, rubbing the fatigue from my eyes, and sat on the edge of the bed. If she insisted on talking about this, I might as well get comfortable. We caught up a bit, talked about how she was doing, got into the nitty-gritty, and told each other how we felt about things. Ended on a good vibe. Really wasn't a big deal. Never said it was. So what's the problem? I heaved. Get what you're after, but ain't more to it than that. I knew I sounded like a bitch, and I hated coming across that way. She was just asking the same damn questions I would have asked if our roles had been reversed. Wasn't even being nosy about it, but I needed some time to absorb first, to process. V had hit me with a lot, much more than I'd expected. I'd sat there with a smile on my face, taking it like a good little ex-output. But damn, I hadn't expected her to be so lost, so angry. I totally understood why. We were on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. I'd made a conscious choice to uproot myself and wipe the canvas clean. V hadn't. She'd been flayed alive when she wasn't looking. Same result, but two completely different outcomes. And even though it wasn't my fault, I still couldn't help but feel bad for her. Bianca had been right all along. I felt guilty for what had happened to her. Look, I'm sorry, I offered, realizing I was taking out my feelings and exhaustion on her. What do you want to know? Can't give you a transcript, but I expected Bianca to leap at the opportunity, get all the juicy details. I certainly would have. But instead, she bit her lip, almost as if she were suddenly afraid to open her mouth. Christ, I hadn't been that short with her. Had I? Finally, she opened her mouth to speak, caught herself at the last second, seemed to mull it over once more before committing at last. What was that whole Heart of Laguna Bend thing going on between you two? Fuck. Her confusion was to be expected. After all, I'd never told her about Laguna Bend except for the customary deets you dropped on a second date to check off the box and say you'd covered everything. Hadn't seen a need to tell her either. Laguna Bend was a part of my past, my distant past. There was so much more that had formed me over the years, different phases that had left their mark, different people. Like V. How could I explain this to her? She knew I was hesitating, and I knew she knew I was hesitating. In fact, she knew I knew that she knew I was hesitating and had to be growing more worried the longer I drew it out. Fine. Out with the truth. Wasn't like I had something to hide. I just didn't want to dredge up one of the most intimate moments of my life, while sitting around in some random hotel room just a few hours before the fate of our studio would be decided. But I had no one to blame for that, except myself. You know I like diving, right? Bianca blinked, obviously thrown by the bizarre change of subject. Yeah? I took a deep breath and plunged into the ice-cold ocean of memories that was Laguna Bend. Laguna Bend was my go-to, my safe place. Water was toxic enough to keep others away, but nothing a good suit couldn't keep out. Used to go there when I had downtime. Didn't go down there or anything like that, just thought about what lay beneath the surface. The house I grew up in with my abuelos, Flo's diner, the church. Go on. I didn't want to do this. Was just inviting trouble. But I had to. I invited V out there once. Before we were a thing. Like, right before. If you get my drift. Oh. Exactly. But now she wished she'd let me go to bed. Was giving her the grand tour. Dumping all my memories on her because I couldn't stand to be alone with them anymore. Actually tested my dual scrolling concept for the first time during that dive. Something flashed behind Bianca's eyes, but I was too wrapped up in my own head to pay it much notice. Don't know what it was about that necklace that caught her eye, I continued. You saw it, it's just a cheap rosary. Gotta be hundreds of them littering the lake bed. But the way she acted when she found it, like she'd found a piece of sunken treasure, it just rolled off the tip of my tongue. The heart of Laguna Bend. Should have seen her face light up. She treasured that thing. Still does. Not the only one, apparently, Bianca muttered under her breath. Ouch. It's not fair, B. Wasn't expecting to see it again. Can't fault me for having a reaction. No, you're right, I can't. But I can fault her. She wore it for a reason. Think you can guess what it is. Had she? Thinking back to it, I really hadn't considered that it had been anything more than a simple slip-up. V was a lot of things, but a liar? Didn't track. And even if she had, so what? What if she had worn it on purpose? Did that mean anything besides the obvious? You couldn't expect someone to simply turn off their feelings on a whim, not when they ran so deep. Our relationship hadn't been a flash in the pan. There'd been depth to it, meaning, emotion. All things that I'd craved, that I still craved. It suddenly dawned on me that I hadn't been as honest with Bianca as I should have been. That had to change. Maybe she did, I admitted before adding. Or maybe she didn't. Personally, I think it's a good thing she's wearing it. She went through hell, B. Think she's still there, trying to find her way out. Can't do that without a compass. Let it be that necklace. Bianca rolled her eyes and drew back the covers. Think her needle's off. I gripped the sheets as tightly as I could. Enough was enough, if that ain't the pot calling the kettle black. Bianca looked as if I'd whacked her upside the head. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I shot back, rising to my feet. "Need me to remind you whose idea this was? I didn't ask for this." "I didn't, and I expected a lot more from you, seeing as you know what it feels like to have your heart ripped out of your chest and stomped on. How about showing a little compassion?" "I did," Bianca exclaimed, "by kissing me right in front of her. Bianca's voice trailed off. Finally, checkmate. And what was the grand prize that awaited me for calling out my wife's behavior? Guilt. Same as the runner-up. Congratulations. I hadn't meant to go off on her like that. I just didn't like what she was insinuating. Of course, V still had feelings for me. That didn't mean I shared those feelings. And it sure as hell didn't give her the right to rub V's face in them, even if I should have known it was coming. Bianca wasn't the jealous type. Until she was. I'd seen glimpses of it before, though she tended to retreat into herself rather than confront it head-on. Was the braver choice of the two, all things considered. Meant she had confidence in herself, in what we had, even if it was shaky. But that kiss was the first time I'd ever seen her behave so passive-aggressively. I didn't like that. I wasn't a prop, something for her to wield when she felt threatened. But I also wasn't in her shoes. I'd known the painful sting of betrayal only once before. Bianca had suffered it countless times. Besides, it wasn't like she'd groped me or made a scene of it. She'd simply succumbed to the ghosts of her past. Can't have a life without a past. I reached out and rubbed her shoulder. Felt like the right sort of peace offering. I'm sorry. No, Bianca corrected me. I'm sorry, babe. Guess I didn't realize how close you two were. Made it sound like you only knew each other a couple of months, if that. Quality, B, not quantity. And if it makes you feel any better, you're the only one I got feelings for. That seemed to bring her around. With a smile, she laid under the covers and turned off the light on the nightstand. I did the same and drew the blackout shade, plunging our room into blackness. A gentle rain was falling. Tiny droplets of water struck the window with a dull patter. What time we gotta be up tomorrow? I asked, pulling the covers over me and settling in. Early. Appreciate you getting everything ready. Good to know there's some serious brain power behind this little venture of ours. Hey, just the fluffer here, Bianca chuckled. You're the one who's actually gotta do the hard stuff. Hate presenting. You scared? Sure, I admitted. But I know what we've got. Give them a glimpse under the wreath and they'll be eager to sign us up for another juicy contract. Bianca hummed and rolled onto her side. I stared into the void where I thought her face was, my eyes slowly growing heavy. It was surprisingly easy to turn off my brain. Months of work and weeks of preparation would soon come to a head, yet it felt like the worst was behind me. Had I really been that preoccupied with seeing her again? Had I dreaded it that much? I smiled and closed my eyes. Tomorrow was going to be preem. We were going to knock those corpos back in their seats and set ourselves up for a long, successful enterprise. And afterwards, we could cut loose, give V a call, and see where... Oh shit. My eyes snapped open. V? What? I tried to sound nonchalant, even though my heart was racing a mile a minute. Just so I don't forget and hit you with it later. V invited us out tomorrow. Said she wanted to repay the favor. That's... okay. I could actually feel her mood deflating like a balloon. Understandable. She'd probably had plans in mind. Things the two of us could do afterwards to celebrate. Just the two of us. Damn it. Should have told her when it was top of mind. I know it's weird. It's alright. Really. Don't gotta explain, babe. I tried to peer through the darkness and read her expression, but it was useless. Could have been a complete stranger laying next to me, and I wouldn't have known the difference. I love you. Love you too. Her words fell flat on my ears, just as mine had surely fallen on hers. I closed my eyes and waited for sleep to take hold of me. My brain began to catalog the events of the past day, causing various disconnected images to pop into my head. The long lines at customs, the detached sound of Delamain's voice, the nervousness on V's face when I'd spotted her at the restaurant. She looked good, much better than she had back at the hospital. A little softer around the edges perhaps, less toned, but still. My thoughts grew vague and scattered. Could hear the soft breathing of the woman sleeping by my side. Could make out the ethereal outline of a familiar church. Could feel warmth in my heart. The heart of Laguna Bend. I drifted off into a deep, peaceful sleep. Yet, even as I sank into an indefinable absence of consciousness, I could hear the faint clanging of church bells echoing in the distance, soothing me.